Well, next month, NFL scouts would turn their attention to Mobile, Alabama, with the Senior Bowl bringing some of those top prospects to play on Sundays. This year's QB class, though, not quite the same talent from a year ago, but guys like UNC's Sam Howell, Liberty's Malik Willis, and Nevada's Carson Strong looking to put something on tape and lace them up one more time to improve that draft stock. They'll have a few chances, of course, before the draft set for later this year, starting with the East-West Shrine Bowl, that one February 3rd in Vegas there, part of the NFL Pro Bowl week, followed by the Senior Bowl on the 5th in Mobile at Hancock Whitney Stadium there. All right, our guy Ryan Wilson tapping in as usual when it comes to those prospects this AM. Before we get to that, he'll be there next month for the Senior Bowl. But Ryan, let's stick with the QBs here with Willis. Didn't face the same type of level competition at Liberty, of course. Struggled in that game against Ole Miss, had 3 interceptions. How important will this time in Mobile be for him?
It'll be huge, Brandon. And you mentioned the Ole Miss game, and that's incredibly important because that's what most scouts, GMs, coaches will go back and look at to try to gauge how the competition, how Malik did against competition that was at a much higher level, the SEC and Matt Corral, also the quarterback on the other side, who's going to be a first-round pick as well. Here's the takeaway. Malik Willis was up and down during his season, and that's not a huge surprise. He's a former Auburn transfer, so he has the ability to play at a high level, but he didn't have a lot of help around him, and that's going to be the recurring storyline as we go through this pre-draft process. The offensive line wasn't very good. The skill position players weren't that great. We don't see those guys playing on Sunday. And then you have to do the math. Okay, how did Malik Willis do with nothing around him in terms of helping him against some of this top-flight competition? And he flashed, and that's going to be the thing to keep in mind. He is not a finished product. You have to understand that. And what you also have to understand is that wherever he lands, you can't force him onto the field. You have to have a situation where you build a team around him, and all that starts in Mobile, where he has an opportunity to go out there and go lights out. And I'll give you a couple examples of guys who did just that. Montez Sweat went down there as an edge rusher and went from late first round to possibly top 10 pick. He ended up going later in the first round because of a heart condition. And then, of course, Daniel Jones, who the Giants fell in love with down there in Mobile. And he went from maybe second-round guy to number 6 overall pick. He hasn't quite panned out yet, but these things can change your lives in terms of your draft stock if you have a good week in Mobile, Alabama.
You have him going 17 to the Steelers there in your latest mock draft. Sam Howell was a guy we viewed as maybe a Heisman Trophy winner before the season. Instead, he had career lows in yards, touchdowns, but career highs in interceptions. What does he need to do to sway scouts during that week?
He needs to follow the Malik Willis blueprint. Now, he played at a Power 5 school, obviously, in North Carolina. They had a great team in 2020. He lost 2 running backs and 2 wide receivers to the NFL, and he didn't quite recover. And much the same situation with Malik Howell in that the players around him didn't step up. Now, they weren't entirely the players around him's fault. He made some poor decisions. And I'll be honest with you, I thought he should have returned to school. I understand why you come out if you'd like to make your money and you think you deserve it. I get all that. But I've talked to teams that think the same thing. They wanted him to come back and perhaps improve his draft stock. But here we are. So we're moving forward with this. He has to go to Mobile. He has a strong arm. He's incredibly tough. He's pretty athletic. He can run the ball if you need him to. Has to make better decisions. Has to prove that he's a leader, do well in the interviews. And that's how you get going in the right direction. We see this all the time, Brandon. I think Sam Howell's probably a middle of the second-round pick. Wouldn't be surprised if he goes higher than that because teams consistently, annually overdraft quarterbacks, and Sam Howell has an opportunity, just like Malik Willis, to improve his draft stock at the Senior Bowl.
Howell has flashed, like you mentioned there, a down year for UNC. But let's look at the defensive side here. Alabama's defensive lineman, Fadarian Mathis, he'll have a little tape after the national championship, of course, Bama in that on Monday. But how can he kind of benefit a little bit more taking that trip to Mobile?
He is a fun story. He's a team leader on this team. He's not a flashy player. He's not a Quinnen Williams type, but he plays with the type of motor and the type of athleticism. He gets after it. He's always in the backfield. He is always splitting double teams. He's always creating havoc, whether against the run or getting after the quarterback. And I keep coming back to this. He's not built like Raekwon Davis. You remember the second-round pick from Alabama who went to Miami, who looks like he was built in a lab. But he plays like you wanted Raekwon Davis to play. I just got so excited I broke my pencil. So I think he's going to have a great game on Monday night. I think he's going to have a great week at the Senior Bowl. And I think whoever lands him in the draft, he'll probably be a day 2 guy, maybe 3rd round, is going to get a great down-to-down player who's not flashy but does all the dirty things you need players like that in the middle of that defensive line to do for you.
All right, how about Mountain West Defensive Player of the Year and San Diego State's Cam Thomas? What do you need to watch from him a little bit?
He's fun, and we don't talk a lot about San Diego State. I think the last time we talked about him here, Brandon, it was about the punter. who's booming 80-yard punts. But Cameron Thomas is actually the second best player on this team, if that makes you feel better. But he's a legit talent. He'll be a day 2 type conversation, maybe sneaks into the first round. He plays mostly on the edge, but you can kick him inside. He's 6'5", 270, breaks double teams up like it's his job. He can set the edge in the run game. He's one of the best, has one of the best pass rush rates of anyone in college football, according to Pro Football Focus. And I think he's going to go down to Mobile, Alabama and ball out. He's played against Power 5 competition. I don't think the stage will be too big for him, and he'll be a fun guy to watch. And people will get to know him together because not a lot of folks, I would imagine, watch a lot of San Diego State football unless you live in that area.
Sad, you got to prove that you're better than a punter on your team. So, of course, he'll get a lot of flack at that in Mobile there. All right, we got about a minute left. What do you have with us on Logan Hall?
Logan Hall out of Houston. Look, last year Peyton Turner was a first-round pick, sort of a surprise by the Saints. He is better, in my mind, than Peyton Turner. He can play the edge. He can play inside. Again, 6'6", 275, around that Cam Thomas range. And he breaks up double teams. He does a lot of the same things Cam Thomas does. And I think he's another sleeper-type player that's going to go down to Mobile, have a good week against some of these top-flight offensive linemen, and come out of it in better draft position than he was heading into the week.
All right, guys, trying to prove it there in Mobile. Per usual, it happens every season and every year before we get to the draft. Ryan Wilson is always tapping in. Appreciate your time, my friend. Don't forget the conversation continues. You catch Ryan there as well. Pick 6 podcast with the Super Friends. Will Brinson, though, the latest episode, joined by Josina Anderson to cover some of those big topics, including Baker Mayfield, of course, having that surgery, and the saga that is with AB out of Tampa. Download and give them a follow.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.